Hello, everyone. I'm Harry Donahue, and welcome to Lookaway Golf Club in Buckingham, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. It's my pleasure to be sitting here today with Rees Jones, who is the man responsible for the 18 holes of championship golf that began, they broke ground back in, 1997, I think, Rees?
Yes, they did, but they first had the idea 20 years ago, 1995.
And of course, a lot has happened in those years that have passed. Rees, before we get into specifically what your work encompassed here at Lookaway, I'm always been an admirer of gentlemen like you. And I'm reminded of the line in the movie Sixth Sense when the youngster said, he sees dead people, something that not many people do. And I often equate it, if I could, to your profession when architects like yourself look at a piece of virgin territory, land, whatever you want to call it, and can see an 18-hole championship golf course. What is it? What is that sense that you have that you can do that and then see it to fruition?
Well, first of all, we look at the land and we see if the land is suitable and it has enough variety and doesn't have areas of wetlands, too much areas you couldn't use. And then we use mapping that really determines where the holes would go, and we adjust that, and we stake it out on the ground and walk it, and we find we got a problem. We reverse holes or change holes or move holes. Here at Lookaway, we were very fortunate to have really a very diverse piece of property, changing elevations, different types of land. We have short holes, medium holes, long holes. We've got a lot of variety. It's got a great ebb and flow. And that's what we wanted. So we really look at it and then we kind of adjust it on the ground to make sure that we have a different shot into the par fours on many holes and different shots on the par threes. Every par three plays a little bit different length and different character. So it's, and I think looking at dead people, we got our ideas from George Crump and Hugh Wilson and Ross and Tillinghast and McKenzie. And to some degree, we get a lot of ideas from seeing those golf courses and playing courses like Marion Pine Valley. And our Marion hole here is the 7th hole, and our Pine Valley here is the 18th.
So you drew on the experiences of those two holes and tried to incorporate them, not exactly tailor-made, but there are resemblances.
Right, the idea.
Yeah. You, of course, grew up, your father was a golf course architect. Not many people have that opportunity either, and a noted international one at that. When did you realize you wanted to follow your father's footsteps and become a golf course architect?
Well, my mother wanted me to have a liberal arts education because she really believed that you shouldn't get too into your profession because your life is better if you have a variety of interests. And so I went to Yale thinking I could beat the world in anything I chose, and then realized that I kind of love what my father did. We'd go on vacations with him to the Dunes Club in Myrtle Beach or Ponte Vedra, Florida, and meet his clients and walk the sites with my dad. And so I really kind of realized that I loved what he did and I wanted to do the same thing. Back in 1963, when I graduated from Yale, golf course architecture wasn't as lucrative as it is today. It wasn't until some of the pros got into the business and jacked up the prices.
The Palmers and the Nicklases
right.
and the Players, et cetera.
Jacked up the prices that it became a little more lucrative. But those of us that went into the business in the 60s really did it for the love of the game.
What was your first project when you were like on your own?
I guess the first project that I did by myself was a place called Arcadian Shores in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And it was right next to the Dunes Club, so that was one of my father's famous golf courses, and so I was sort of competing with him at Arcadian Shores, and then it made the top 100 list along with the Dunes Club, which was really a very important part of my career. And then I guess the courses that catapulted my career were when I redid the Country Club at Brookline for the 1988 U.S. Open. I did Pinehurst number 7 to get a course in the Pinehurst rotation was quite an achievement and turned out to be a pretty good golf course on probably the most rugged site at Pinehurst. And Hague Point on Defusky Island, South Carolina, and then it all kind of mushroomed in the boom time.
You have the, I don't know who dubbed it, the Open Doctor title, meaning courses that were venues for U.S. Opens you may have tinkered with and restored to some degree. Do you remember who gave you that title? Were some newspaper guy?
Sure. My father had the moniker to begin with. And then when I redid Baltusrol, George Pepper of Golf Magazine dressed me up in
Physician's garb?
Yeah, surgical physician garb, and that's when I became the Open Doctor. And I guess it keeps growing. I guess I'll have about 25, 26 major championships that have been or are in the
that you've restored.
rotation. Yeah.
I think there's like a half a dozen Opens, more than that, PGA championships, Walker and Ryder Cups.
There's 7 Open venues, 8 PGA venues, 5 Ryder Cup venues, President's Cup venue, and 2 Walker Cup venues, which means I must be getting older.
And also iconic when it comes to your profession. Let's talk specifically now a little bit about Look Away. There's a story I heard from one of the founders here, how you got involved, and it was a mutual friend. Tell us about it.
Bruce McKissick, Bill Waldron, and Harry Ferguson really had this idea to build Look Away. And there was a gentleman that lived out here, had a home out here named Ira Gouderman, who was a part of their committee initially trying to determine where would they get the land, where would they do it, who would they hire as their architect. And they're having this meeting and they're talking, maybe we should hire this person or maybe this person. And Ira was my skin doctor. He was my dermatologist. And he said, well, I have a patient that says he's got something to do with golf. I think he designs golf courses. He might be interested. Who's that? Do you remember his name? He said, yeah, I remember his name is Rees Jones. Oh, Rees Jones, okay. Would you call him for us? And that's what happened.
That's like if you're starting a baseball team. I have a fellow by the name of Babe Ruth that I know. He may be available. So, okay, that was your first introduction to the idea of Look Away. And then when you met with those gentlemen, the founders, they gave you a kind of a philosophy of what they wanted here at Look Away. And from what I understand, you were pretty much enthralled by their idea. It wasn't going to be a golf course development. It was going to be golf-centric and for the good of the game, for want of a better term. And that kind of turned you on to this place, didn't
it? Absolutely. And see, I've been very fortunate in that I didn't get into this industry for the money. I knew I had to get enough money to put food on the table, but this is the type of project that I know will stand the test of time. And I didn't want to do golf courses that would be just sold to the members or after the development was. So I only took 4 or 5 jobs a year because Herbert Warren Wind, the famous golf writer, after the Brookline Open, I became pretty well known and very much in demand. He said, don't do what your father did and don't take on too many golf courses. Just take on 4, 5, or 6 a year and put the detail in them so they'll stand the test of time and they'll be great golf courses. So I've built a lot of golf courses that were just built for the game itself, and I think Look Away is at the top of that list because that's what the founders envisioned. This is a golf course that's going to be here for a long, long time, and people can enjoy, and really enjoy the game. It's not typical of a golf course that's just going to beat you up.
Right, and the other thing about it, they wanted to make it a walking golf course as much as possible, so you'd have caddies, and not that there's anything wrong with carts. Some people need them because of age or whatever. But did that also figure into your design here at Look Away?
Well, a lot of my courses have been caddy oriented, and again, you try to have your greens and your tees close to one another. If you have wetlands, you can have more distance, like we have from 15 to 16 and 17 to 18. But that was the way it was designed, to be walkable, and I guess the majority of the players walk this golf course, which is really a positive element.
You talked about how you drew on other holes, noted golf course holes from around the country, and I'm just wondering, is there, or how difficult is it when you've designed how many, 200 golf courses or more internationally? Do you ever find yourself running out of ideas on the shape of a hole or the type of green, number of bunkers that you have? I mean, After a while, do you get exhausted, or how do you keep creating a different golf hole design?
Well, the land basically tells you what you can and can't do. And then what you do is you do a few sketches for the first few holes, and you make sure you don't repeat those same elements on the golf course. That's why Lookaway has 18 distinctly different holes on a really beautiful piece of property. You don't really run out of ideas, but there's a line you don't want to cross. If you want to build something really unique, it may not work, because this is not a passive design. This is an active design, and this has to work on a continuing basis for every caliber player, from the entry-level player to the most accomplished. So I think you go back to your ideas of things that have worked in the past and been enjoyed in the past. Isn't necessarily the same green or the same bunker or the same location of the green. But it's some of the ideas, and you don't want to have an uphill green with a green that falls away, because the ball won't stop. So there's things that as far as how the game is played.
Are there certain distinctions on this golf course and other golf courses that you've designed that people can, without knowing who the architect was, say, this looks like a Rees Jones design? Is there any trademark or something that kind of repeats itself over the course of one course that you've designed to another?
Well, I hope not. I think that Tillinghast was really my favorite designer, because he never repeated his designs. I mean, I've redone Baltusrol for the 2016 PGA Championship. I redid it for the Open Championship before, in the other one, and I redid Bethpage Black for 2 Opens, and now it'll be a PGA and a Ryder Cup. And those are 2 distinctively different styles. And so I would think that this style is the Lookaway style. And I wouldn't want people to come in and say, oh my goodness, it's a Rees Jones golf course.
Okay.
I think then you're repeating your style. And some architects do that. They get into a rut because it's so well accepted, but then after you play it 10 times, you played a golf course, you played somewhere else. Now, the reason it's more important today is that people travel more in golf. Golf's on TV. It isn't like the old days when Seth Rayner basically built a lot of the same features on a lot of golf courses, but one was in South Carolina, one was in Minnesota, one was in Long Island, so people didn't see the other golf courses.
Now we have an opportunity by way of television, websites, whatever. It's at our fingertips. After you came up with the, blueprint for 18 holes here, did you pass that on to anybody for inspection? Not necessarily the founders, but somebody on your staff for feedback? Or do you basically say, this is what it's going to look like?
No, I did it with Keith Evans, my design associate, and we worked together. I would say that I was primarily the idea guy. And then with the founders, Bruce McKissick and Harry Ferguson and Bill, were very much involved. And I was here a lot, and we'd go around the holes and talk about the designs and talk about how we'd play. And this was a very hands-on design job by both Keith and myself and the committee that we worked with.
And of the 18 holes that you originally laid out, did it stay that way, or how many revisions were made before you actually began to route the golf course?
Well, we wanted to buy a little more land where number 1 is, because we didn't want to have that long walk from 1 to 2, but we couldn't get it.
And it's the first hole to the second. It's not like you've played already 3 hours of golf and maybe the legs are a little weary, right?
That's right. And after you have
if you're going to have a long walk, let's have it between 1 and 2.
That's right. After have the first long walk, and then there's very few after that say, oh, thank goodness.
I hear you. Speaking about the first hole, and this is another almost a generic question to architects, do you try to make that sort of a warm-up hole? Maybe, I know there's a golf course in Ireland, and on the first tee, they have the last easy, I think, meaning it gets a lot harder after this, fellas or ladies. What about your philosophy when it comes to opening holes?
Well, I don't think you're trying to make it necessarily easy. You don't want a long par 4, and you don't want a short par 5, because you don't want it to take a long time to play. So you want to get them off. There is water on our first hole. But that's one, you know you're done when you hit in the water and you just hit another one. You're not looking in the woods. So, yeah, I think you want to get off, but it's a very good par 4. It's not long, but you got to think about it. But there's a bailout area on the right if you want to go that way.
Right, and if that pin's in the front, it makes it an even tougher par 4, especially if you hit your approach shot to the back. There's a little slope there on that green.
Yeah, but as you play it as a private club, you know that some of the hole locations are sucker hole locations, and you do play it a little bit more cautiously if you know you're in the tough locations. Now, the pros have the same situation, but they only get a couple of days to get ready for that, and they're not sure necessarily where the sucker hole locations are, but the members here do.
How about in terms of trends in golf? You see, we do, I think, more and more architects are going for a drivable par 4. How about here at Lookaway? Did you incorporate that into the design?
The drivable par 4 is really mostly for championship golf because those are the players that hit it generally the same length. We just did one at Belle Reve for the 2018 PGA on the 11th hole. We did it at Medina on the 15th hole for the Ryder Cup. But, and yet they really don't play it at Medina now as a drivable par 4 for the members. It's a driver and a wedge. Same thing at 11. That'll be pretty much that way at Belle Reve. So the drivable par 4 is really just for championship golf. If they have a championship here, I imagine they could even make the first hole drivable, although it wouldn't be the right place to have it. You really want to have a drivable par 4 in the back 9 somewhere where it's worth it to take a chance
Crunch
going
time.
for a 1. Because there's a Belle Reve, there's a pond on the right, and on Medina there's a pond there. A drivable par 4 without a risk is not very good because it's a risk-reward shot, but it's predominantly for the pros.
Right. I'm thinking specifically here at Lookaway. How about like the 9th hole? It's not a particularly long par 4. I don't know if it's drivable. Perhaps if they ever have a championship here, they could move the tee up a little bit and then make it for some of these guys out on tour now a drivable par 4. And it has a little dog leg and it's a well-protected green.
It's very well-protected green, which makes they have to fly it in there. They won't have the option of bouncing it in. But you could make that drivable. Sure.
So they'd bring you back and maybe widen the green and
maybe widen the throat. Yeah.
What about the land here? The topography varies, like you mentioned earlier, from elevations and things like that. How did it, or how was it in terms of cultivating the growing of grass and things like that? Did you have a relatively easy time with the soil here at Lookaway?
We looked for the land. We found the land that we knew would create a great golf course. It isn't like when an owner would say, "I've got this piece of property, and here it is, and do the best you can." I mean, we looked and we knew we had a great piece of property for a really wonderful golf course. We had wetlands that we dealt with, but actually turned out to be natural hazards, and the incorporation of the wetlands, I like number 12, are really interesting features. The soil was good. And we have a great superintendent, Dave Rank. He came from Pine Valley, so he had great training. He's been here from the outset, and he expressed some interest in different turfs, and he selected the turf for the greens. And right now, 20 years later or 17 years later, there's no POA in his greens. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment.
In this area of the country, yeah.
Yes.
Talk about number 12, par 4. You have the pond up situated right adjacent to in front of the green there. Was that pond, was that the original dimensions of that? I mean, when you were unearthing what was there, all the overgrowth and everything, that pond was there?
Well, that's a wetland.
Okay.
And I think the great thing about the last 20 years in golf course design is that the wetlands laws came into being, and we had to stay away from them. And I think it gave the golf architects the higher land. Back before then, when golf course architects were being relegated to the swamps, and now that you couldn't do any damage to the wetlands, it gave golf architects the type of land they had previous to the Depression, when they had all the upland because they didn't have any money to spend on building golf courses. So, and we incorporated the wetlands into the design of a hole like on number 12, which is a great par 4. It's one of the few holes where you really have to carry the ball into the green.
Mm-hmm. Are there any favorites for Rees Jones among the 18 holes that you designed here?
I get asked that question all the time.
I'm sure you do.
And, or what's the signature hole? Or I think if you really just go through this golf course, this is a signature golf course. And I mean, you get down to 16 and 17, you feel like you're somewhere different. You get down there, 5, 6, 7, it feels like you're in a different place. You go on 12, 13, 14.
When you say different, like a different area of the country almost,
well, just
right?
a different location.
Right, from the
Yes.
previous holes you played.
Which is why I think that the membership is full here, and why this has really captured the spirit of the game of golf, because you never tire of playing look away, because it's always a change of pace. It's fair. There's shot options. You can hit on the ground on most holes. A couple holes you have to carry it in, like 12, like 15, but that's a change of pace. So I think that's why there's no really signature hole. The signature hole might be the 18th hole, because it's probably a pretty demanding finishing hole, and that's the crescendo of the round at look away. That's you have to think about it. If you have a good score going, you really have to think about hitting a long drive and getting yourself into position there. But I did give you a bailout on left if you yank it, because you try to hit it too hard.
I have questions about 18, but I also have questions about 17, par 5. You have wetlands that cross over the fairway, and it's the prototypical risk-reward par 5, isn't it? You have a dogleg in there. You have just about everything on that hole.
Yeah, well, that's the land that we got to across the wetland, and that's it's not a long par 5. It's 535 yards, so you can go for it if you're a good player, and that's why we put all the bunkers on the right side over the wetland, so that if you drift it, no matter what you're doing, you'll have a harder third shot to get to the green in regulation, and to some degree, those bunkers are keeping you into play too. But again, you do have to hit a good drive to get over the wetland across the fairway. But I think that's typical of courses in this neck of the woods. If it's not a stream, it's a natural area. And I think that's part of the game of golf.
And speaking about 17, off the tee, there's a gentle slope. So if your ball, you can be hitting a downhill lie if you're going to go for it in 2, which always creates some problems regardless of the skill of the golfer.
Yeah, just put it back a little bit.
Just put it back. So now you're giving lessons. All right, and then 18, which I think anybody who has played this course spreads the word. Where do you see the 18th hole at Lookaway? I'm curious, when you came to that piece of land, what was the first 1 or 2 things you thought about as a closing hole?
Well, the 18th hole is the crescendo of the round. You have to think about it all the way around, especially when you're shooting your low score. You hope you can survive that hole. It was the pattern with an elevated green, much like Pine Valley number 18. That's why we bunkered it up the face, much like Pine Valley 18. When I was 16 years old, my father took me to Pine Valley for my first round of golf, and he bet me $100, and that was a lot of money in 1957, that I couldn't break 90. I got to the 18th hole of Pine Valley with my dad, and hit a driver, not a long drive, and I needed a 4-wood at the green. He says, "Oh, lay up, Rees." I said, "No, I'm not laying. I gotta get to the green." Hit the best shot of my youth, made the green, 2-putted, won my $100, and I've never forgotten that. That was one of my 18th at Pine Valley is one of my favorite holes in golf. And I just saw the opportunity to build a replica of the 18th of Pine Valley, more of a dog leg, but a hole with similar characteristics coming to the green, and that's what we did. And it's the crescendo, it's the finish, and I think it worked out very well.
And not only the golf hole, but then the patio, the clubhouse. I mean, if there is a perfect setting for a finishing hole, all things considered, it's captured here on number 18 at Lookaway.
And because it's, you have to hit a good drive to really go for it, because it has a wetland, much like, Pine Valley has a little wet area there too. And so a lot of things can happen. So I imagine when you're having drinks on the patio, it's pretty entertaining.
If you got a few shekels being bet among members, it's a good entertaining spot to be, number 18. You know what, another trend, we talked about trends earlier in terms of golf course design these days. And I'm curious, when it comes to playability versus difficulty, what side of that do you choose?
Well, I've always chosen playability, and even in all the courses I've redone for the PGA of America and for the USGA for their Opens and PGA Championships, and people think I always make them harder, but if you have a bunker that you can't take the club back, we fix that. If we have the wrong pitch on a bunker, we fix that when we're doing it for a major championship. So also we want to have shot options, but shot options are mainly for the average golfer, because the better players in the game today play a different game than they did 20, 25 years ago, where they really rolled the ball to the hole. Now they fly it, and they're hitting it so far, they just loft it, and the ball's better, the clubs are better. So they play a one-dimensional game versus our game, which is multi-dimensional. So I have to really think about that, especially for the entry-level player, the better player of the club, the medium handicap. At Lookaway, you have a lot of shot options, and you have a lot of open entrances, and you can release the ball to the green with a knockdown shot, or you can fly it into the green, which I think makes this golf course play differently every time, and you never tire of it.
That's the key. You can play it as many times as you want and never get tired or find repetition. In closing here, Rees, I give you the opportunity to share with our viewers, maybe in a little more than 30 words or less, what is it about Lookaway that makes it a great golf facility?
Well, I think the first thing is what Harry, Bruce, and Bill did is they really organized, and I was very much a part of their team in hosting parties and hosting groups of people to tell them how great this facility and this club is going to be. And they brought in a wonderful group of members and people, and it's a really great place to meet. It's a congenial club. The membership is really terrific, and it's like a second home. And I think the golf course brought the people here, and they enjoy it, and they enjoy it even as they get older. And because we designed it that way, the par fives aren't all that long, and you've got the variety of the par threes, and you have short par fours and long par fours. I just think it's stood the test of time. It will continue to do so because of the people and because of the facility.
Anybody who is from the Philadelphia area or has played a lot of golf here knows the quality of golf courses in Philadelphia. And being a lifelong Philadelphian, we often take it for granted. But this is a relatively new golf course when you look in terms of Marion and Pine Valley and some of the other great Philadelphia Cricket Club. I mean, Tillinghast himself was a member there. You mentioned him earlier. Where would you rank Lookaway in the hierarchy of just in the Philadelphia area? Forget about Oakmont in the western part of the state in Pennsylvania, just among great iconic golf courses in Philadelphia.
Well, Philadelphia is a bastion of great golf courses because a lot of architects lived here, and then you had the amateur architects, the Hugh Wilsons and the George Crumps, that studied the land and then worked with H.S. Colt, and then you had George Thomas, who was from here, and
White Marsh Valley.
Right,
Yeah.
and so I mean, it's a real wonderful place to come and play a lot of phenomenal golf courses. I felt that when we built Lookaway, that this was the home of a lot of really wonderful facilities. And I think that my dream was that Lookaway would be very much a part of that family of golf clubs. And I think that's what we've achieved. We're part of this wonderful Philadelphia area golfing scene.
Yeah, it is spot on. One of the top among the echelon of great golf courses in Philadelphia. Rees, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And I think I speak on behalf of all the current, former, and future members of Lookaway Golf Club. Thank you for a job well done.
Oh, you're welcome.